we won on paper, but we lost everything. And so in a year's worth of time, I went from being at the White House,
Mm.
speaking on behalf of small business, to being on my couch with no business, no team, having to move because we lost our home, everything.
Oh my
And so it was
gosh.
at that point that I had this, you know, okay, I can sit here and cry, or
Mhm.
I can try again. And I can say a lot of bad things happen to good people, but what part of that story do I own? What could I have done differently?
Hello, amazing humans, and welcome to episode number 262 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Have you ever made a boatload of money in your business and had like nothing to show for it? Uh-huh. You're hitting like really high six figures, but you're not taking a salary? Yeah, if you have started to run a business and chased the ever elusive, all beautiful, more sales, more sales, more sales that so many people chase, chances are what's happened with those increased sales is increased expenses. And what that means is you're actually not making money in your business. And it can feel horrible. The emotional toll of that, feeling like a fraud, feeling like you're hiding, feeling like if anybody really knew, this is a really common experience in business. And today's guest, Ciara Stockeland, is going to break this down for us in a way no one else ever has. You are going to love this episode. You're going to love Ciara's honesty as she talks about that exact experience and what she went through, what she's learned from it, and how she now helps and makes sure other business owners don't make that mistake. Ciara Stockeland is a speaker, author, four-time Ironman, and fractional CFO for inventory-based businesses. She's owned and operated a business since her early teens. As a serial entrepreneur, her business mindset and tenacity led her to opening her first store in 2006, which she then franchised. Her vast experience in both retail and wholesale industries led her to launch the first to market wholesale subscription box for boutique retailers, which she built and sold within 18 months. 18 months. Just keep that in mind. And most recently, Ciara has launched the Inventory Genius, a consulting program for inventory based business owners. And she's now running a service based business. So she understands that profit margin and how to make sure expenses stay low in that business as well. She's twice had the opportunity to testify before the U.S. Senate committees regarding the joint employer standard of business and its effect on small businesses and franchises. Additionally, in 2015, she represented small businesses at a White House summit on worker voice, and again in 2018 for a summit on economics. If you have ever wanted someone by your side who is a champion, you are really going to enjoy this episode. And I want you to listen for when Ciara tells you which kind of coaches you should fire. So good. Without further ado, pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Ciara, are you kidding me? I am so excited. Welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Boy, do we all want to talk about numbers right now? And are you the perfect person to help us out? Welcome.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to talk about numbers. We can make them fun. We can. So don't leave. We'll
They're,
make it interesting.
they're the best. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? When numbers are like, oh my gosh, when you start to figure out what they tell you, it's like a party.
And when you get to start to keep some of it, then it's like, oh yeah. Yep.
So good. All right, woman. Well, listen, I know you are incredibly smart. We had a great time on your podcast. We have talked about a lot of stuff. We've covered a lot of stuff together. And so I know firsthand that there is a lot that you could have done with your life. There's so many different directions you could have gone, with your skills, with your experience, your expertise. Out of all the things on planet Earth that Ciara could be doing,
Yeah.
why is this what you do? Tell us everything.
All right. So I'm a third generation entrepreneur, born and raised in Fargo, North Dakota, where
Oh
it's
my
windy.
gosh.
And yes, it truly is below zero for weeks at a time. I don't live there anymore, though. We escaped. So we live in Nashville, but born and raised in an entrepreneurial family. So that was only natural. I started my first business when I was 13, built that, grew it for a decade. When I wrapped that up after having a couple of small children, I decided retail would be a good idea. Never worked a day in my life in a store, but I was like, oh yeah, I can open a store and do this. So I opened a maternity baby store in 2006.
Oh.
6 months later, opened a second retail concept. It was an outlet store. My husband was working for a trucking company at the time, the boss came and said, hey, we have all this salvage freight. You have a store. Can you sell it for us? And I was like, well, not my maternity store, but yes, I can sell it for you. So I opened a second location. So then we had 2 retail concepts running at the same time.
Oh my
I
gosh.
ended up merging those concepts and I franchised it. So I built a boutique business. Think like TJ Maxx in a small boutique environment. That's what the concept ended up being in 2008. And then I franchised it because I thought, why not franchise? So,
Absolutely.
knew nothing about franchising. In fact, super funny. I wrote my first franchise agreement myself because I was like, well, I don't need to pay for an attorney to
Oh
do
my
this when I
gosh.
can just do it in Word doc. I did have an attorney actually review it before we sold a franchise, but yeah, so just kind of went and learned as I went. And I did that with my numbers as well. So what happened, if you ever read or your kids read the book, like If You Give a Mouse a Cookie,
Yes.
that's my business, right? So, okay, so now I'm going to have a second location. Well, if I have a second location, I need to have more stuff. And if I have more stuff, I need a forklift to unload it. And if I need a forklift, I need a forklift driver. And so the business just kept growing top line revenue, but with it grew all of the trouble and all of the expenses right alongside.
Mm-hmm.
Franchising is very expensive
Mm-hmm.
because it's federally regulated. You have to have a team to support your franchisees. So all these things were going on. I was getting national recognition, went to the White House, small business advocacy, spoke, 13 stores, all the things. But on the inside, I felt like a fraud. I was like, I feel trapped. I don't know what to do with all this debt. This is out of control. Long story short, in 2017, I was scrolling through one of our franchisees' social media and I saw that overnight they had changed their name and rebranded their store, which they cannot do with a
Right. You're
franchise
like, nope,
agreement. It's
illegal.
federally binding. Yep,
Yeah, no.
illegal, not cool. So because of that, we started unwinding what was going on in the background, and we found there was a group of franchisees that were running 2 point of sale systems and not paying their royalties.
Oh my gosh.
So we filed lawsuits for trademark
Oh my goodness.
infringement and breach of contracts. We won them all, but we lost everything,
Of
including our home.
course.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, those
Yes.
lawsuits are just
It
so
was so
expensive, even
expensive.
when you're
Yep.
right.
The lawyers
Yeah.
won the money. We won on paper, but we lost everything. And so in a year's worth of time, I went from being at the White House, speaking on behalf of small business, to being on my couch with no business, no team, having to move because we lost our home, everything.
Oh my
And so it was
gosh.
at that point that I had this, okay, I can sit here and cry, or I can try again. And I can say a lot of bad things happen to good people, but what part of that story do I own? What could I have done differently? And so there were things I could have done differently, including understanding what was going on with the numbers. Because if I wouldn't have pushed so hard to grow top line revenue, but instead it would have focused on profitability and paying myself, I probably wouldn't have sold franchisees to the wrong people. There were so many decisions I made to grow that weren't, wise decisions. And so I thought, I'm going to try this again. This time I'm going to do it different. I am not answering the phone 24/7. I am paying myself from day one. I am not going to buy into this lie that we can't be profitable for 5 years. Like, I'm going to build something, grow it, and sell it really quick. And I did that in 18 months. I
Oh my
promise I'm
gosh.
answering your question. So, and with that, I grew, it was a wholesale subscription box for retailers. With that, I started meeting all these small retailers that had the same questions I had had. How much inventory should I have? How do you read a financial? I
Yes.
don't have any money, even though I'm making all these sales. And I was very resistant to helping them because I'm like, every boutique owner is going to screw me. Like, they're out there to screw me. So fine, I will give you an answer, but like, I'm not getting attached to you. I'm not. And I was very resistant. And there was no thought in my mind about coaching or consulting. It was
Interesting.
like, I'm building this, I'm going to sell it, get out of it, stay away from people, don't want to touch inventory.
I hate everyone. Right.
I
Yes.
hate everyone,
Yes.
and they probably all are out to get me and ruin me.
Oh.
But God brought this gal into my life. Her name was Lisa. And I love her story because in those moments when we're like, okay, this was super hard, and I have a choice of either forgiving and moving on or living in this bitterness, Lisa came into my life. She's like, hey, I just bought your subscription box. I just opened a boutique store. And tragically, my husband died, and he was hit by a drunk driver. Unforeseen, he died. And she's like, he was a numbers guy. I know nothing about this. Now I have this business. Can you help me?
Oh
Well,
my
I couldn't say no
gosh.
to Lisa. I was
No,
like,
you couldn't.
fine, Lisa's probably not going to screw me, God. I guess I'll help Lisa.
Oh my
And it was
gosh.
through that I found I can help people with their, like, I know how to grow businesses. I know what I did right. I know what I did wrong. And so that's why I do what I do today.
Holy cannoli. Oh my gosh.
You might have
That
to
was
edit
like,
some, I mean, I know that's long,
no,
but
but
I can't leave any
if you
part
guys are
out.
watching this on YouTube, like my mouth has been open for the last couple minutes because what a story. Holy cow. I just,
Yeah,
there's
it's
so
been
much to
crazy.
unpack there. But I mean, given the conversation you and I want to have, the mistakes people make, especially
Yeah.
as they start to review, like they're like a year in review. Let me see how I did. Like,
Yes.
I think what you just described is so freaking important because people are so busy chasing that top line.
Yes.
And as a CEO, we have two jobs. Increase the top line, always decrease expenses so that we are watching profit,
Yeah.
not just top line revenue. And I'm so happy that you have both physical and service experience because I think that is so important. I
Yeah.
think in service, and I might be biased, so push back on me if I have this incorrectly. I
Yeah.
think it can be even worse. Like I watch people run these ad campaigns. I'm like, you don't even know what's going to work
Yes.
for your audience yet. Why are you, wait a minute. Right. Or these people, I call them, the entrepreneur porn that we see on social media, right? They're
Yes.
like, I make $1 million every 20 minutes or
You're like,
whatever.
but do you?
Yeah, exactly. They just had a 7-figure launch, but they spent like 7.5 to get it.
Yeah.
And they're not
Yeah.
telling the truth about that. And I think the honesty that you just shared is so huge.
Yeah.
So huge.
Yeah. It happens in so many businesses.
Right.
I say in my latest book, I'm like, how often have you been in a room with people and they're all bragging about 7-figure, 6-figure, all these things? How often have you been in a room with entrepreneurs where they're bragging about their profit? Not once. I guarantee you.
I
Not
love
once.
it.
They're not talking about their profit because first they don't know what it is or where it comes from. And most likely they're in a deficit or they're
Yes.
living this life of like, I'm 7-figure, but behind the scenes, like, oh my goodness, I can't pay off my credit cards. I'm juggling money around. I'm about to go to business.
Yes.
They don't know
Yes.
their numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember working once at a networking group, right? And one of the women had to put payroll, she had to split it up among 5 of her credit cards. And I turned to the leader. I'm like, how are you letting this happen? And they're like, oh, it's the
Yes.
cost of doing business. I'm like, no, it's not. No,
Yeah.
no. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, the business model is broken. Like she should be
Yeah.
making profit. That money should be going to her, not to Amex or whoever. Right. And
Exactly.
that just broke my heart. And it kind of started my journey. It was like 15 years ago. And I remember that
Yep.
was like, I sort of started to peek under the tent a little bit, right? I'm like, what is happening
You're
in
like,
here?
wait a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
I know it's so true.
it really is. And so I know, going right on into this, that one of the things that you do really well is you help people understand the difference between
Yeah.
top line revenue and actual profit. Can you talk to us?
Yeah.
Like, I would love to know if you're open to sharing, like, what you think the most common mistake is. I think we've sort of touched on it, right? Or what is one thing someone could do today to start to like steer that ship correctly?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is to understand the financials, which don't go to sleep on me. I will make it super simple. So, and this
Funny.
doesn't mean you have to be an accountant, but you need to understand the financials. So there's two pieces that are important in the financial set. There's three, but there's two that are really important. So you have your profit and loss statement and you have your balance sheet. When you understand what they're saying, it's like, oh my goodness, now I know the pieces of the puzzle. So the profit and loss has 5 sections. The sales, that's what we always concentrate
That's
on.
what everybody talks about.
Underneath that is the cost of sales. So if you're a product-based business, great, your cost of goods sold, your freight in, your warehousing. If you're a service-based business, do you have 1099s? Like, what does it cost you to make the sales? What are your cost of goods? And then the difference between those two. So let's say you have 100,000 in sales, 50,000 cost of goods. Now you have 50,000 in gross margin. That's the money you have to run your business. So then that fourth category is going to be your expenses. So now you have your gross margin, you subtract all the expenses, opening the door, turning on the lights, paying for insurance, whatever's left at the end is our profit. And if you have debt, it gets paid out of that as well. So when people come to me and they're like, oh my goodness, I owe money on taxes this year because I was profitable, but I don't have 100,000. Like, where is it? I'm like, okay, do you have debt? Because it went to service your debt. And if your debt is more than your profit, you're in a lot of trouble. And so people don't understand that. So that's a
Yes.
P&L and understanding how the money flows. Then your balance sheet is what you want to have really strength. You want to build strength in. So your balance sheet, you have assets at the top, which is going to be money in the bank account, inventory if you have it, if you have furniture, fixtures, equipment, anything you can turn into cash. And then your liabilities is what you owe people. So if you can see, okay, balance sheet, snapshot in time. As of today, how healthy is my business? What do I have? What do I owe? Profit and loss, what happened yesterday? Then you can start to make choices to fix those issues. So that would be number one, like just understand that. And it's not super scary, right? It's just math. We can all do addition and subtraction. We can do that. Yes.
You know, that's what I always say is like, you guys, this is fourth grade math. None of it. And that might even be kind
It's
of
not
high,
scary. It's not hard.
right? Yeah, it's really not. But I think, and this is where I love to come into, Ciara, I would love to know what you think about this, because you know how much I love to talk about our relationship to money,
Yeah.
right? Do you think, as business owners, the fear of looking at that is almost like moral? Like we feel like ashamed if it's not perfect. Like there's this judgment we have on ourselves.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I'm going to give a story for both sides of that. So I had a client and I make them put their money. We do Money Mondays. You put certain numbers in for me every Monday. It's a routine because it creates rhythm in your brain that actually produces cash when you have good
Yay.
rhythms. So they put these numbers in, and I had a client every week. Her numbers weren't in. Yes, it's next week I'll start. Weren't in. So finally it's like, okay, tell me what is going on. Why aren't we putting them in? She said, Ciara, because I don't like the numbers. I don't want to put them in. I said, here's the thing. Whether you put them in the spreadsheet or not, the numbers are the same. So if we don't like that we only have $1,000 in our bank account, if we enter it into the spreadsheet or we don't enter it in, you still only have $1,000 in your bank account. But when you look at it, we can make a plan. If you choose not to look at it, we can't make a plan to fix it, right?
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
that extreme. I think the other side is I have a client who does phenomenally well, no debt, lots of profit. And she was
Amazing.
afraid to grow because she didn't understand the numbers. She's like, if I make more money, I will lose it because I don't know how to manage it. Okay.
Oh my
So
gosh.
either way, right? So
Yeah.
saying to both of them, looking at it gives us reality. And when we have reality, we can make a plan. If we don't look at it, we can't move forward. We either stay stuck and we don't grow, or we actually never get out of debt, right?
Yeah.
Either or. Yeah.
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 Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I think that is so important. You're reminding me of it. So funny. Every time I work with a trainer and I work really hard to get like super healthy, right? This is a
Yep.
thing I do. I love to do like consistency challenges and have fun with it. And I remember I had one of them once, very similar. He's like, you didn't put everything in my fitness pal, whatever the heck we were
Yeah.
tracking it in. He's like, whether you put it in there or not, it went in your body. And I was like, dang it.
Right. You're like,
dang.
shucks, those Doritos do show up somewhere, don't they?
I was like, oh, you mean it still counts? Yeah. And so I love that you said that. And I think all of us can relate to that, right? It's that whole joke we all say, if you eat a cupcake in the kitchen and no one sees, you didn't really eat it. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
Right. Whether or not you are following what's happening in your business, whether or not it's still happening.
Yes.
And that the control of it or the power lies in knowing what the trends are. What is it telling you? What are
Just
the
admit
stories?
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think surrounding yourself, there's something like with people who will not judge you for that.
Yes.
So people will come to me. I had a client on our consult call. She told me all these things and she's crying, and she's like, will you still take me? I was like, oh yeah.
Please.
Hello.
Yes. Let's
Bring on
go.
a mess. She's like, what? And then she hired me. I went for our first visit and she was like, are you going to fire me? I was like, no, I'm not going to fire you. Like, I don't care about your mess. Every mess is fixable. Right. But I've had people, before I understood the numbers, I had an accountant that would make me feel so stupid. I would ask a question and his answers were belittling. Get rid of those people. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Agreed.
you are the boss of your business and you need to find someone who will say, you don't get it? No worries. Let's figure out how to get you some information. Let's break it down for you. No one surrounding you on your team should ever make you feel dumb about not knowing something. And so that's part of it too. Like, get rid of those people.
Oh, thank goodness you said that. I think that is so critical. You guys, if you take nothing from our conversation today, please get rid of people that aren't supportive, because
Yes.
especially around money, I think there's so much here, right? It's a tool we have to handle every single day. we all have emotions and like, I don't want to look feelings about it, right? Everybody's
Yep.
kind of like, I'm thinking of you at the White House, even, right, Ciara? Like, oh my gosh, if they knew that feeling, we all have that
Yes.
at some point.
Yeah.
And then nobody teaches you how to deal with it. It's like the most important tool we have access to. And oh, by the way, there's no bye, good luck. And then we
Yeah.
feel bad about that. And it's like, oh, no, no. Let's get so many people in a room with you who are here to lift you up and help you
Yeah.
understand it. So you can be like, oh, I'm rocking and rolling, or, oh, I see what happened that month.
Yeah.
That's why that credit card didn't get. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad
Yes.
I saw that. Now I know for next time. And there's already so much shame. Like to have somebody shame you on top of what we're
Yeah.
already internally fighting. Like, no, thank you, please.
No. No, thank you.
No, so not needed. So
No.
not needed. So let's say somebody starts looking at their balance sheet, right? They're looking at the P&L, they're looking at the balance sheet, they're understanding. Where do you like to sort of direct people to go when it comes to profitability goals?
Yeah. So people like to do two things. They like to increase sales, which is what I did, right? Just sell more stuff and it'll fix our problems.
Yeah, if only.
No, if
Yeah,
you don't
if
have the
only.
foundation fixed,
Yeah.
you're just going to get a bigger and bigger building that's toppling over. Or they'll say, I'm going to cut expenses. You can't cut expenses to grow, right? So cutting expenses is good. And we want to audit that and we don't want to wastefully spend, but that's not going to grow your business. So where
Mm,
I focus is margin. Whether you're inventory, I mean, I work with inventory-based businesses or sales service-based businesses, margin, right? Your margin directly affects your net profit. So looking at your margin, what is the cost of the sales? If I'm doing $1 million, what goes into selling that $1 million worth of services or inventory product? We always focus on the margin. And it's funny because people will say, but I can't raise my prices here. I can't raise my prices because then people won't buy from me. And I say, okay, that's part of fixing the margin, but there's other levers we can pull to. Yes, we can adjust pricing and usually it actually works. And you're telling yourself stories about why it wouldn't, we have to debunk those. But there's other ways too. Like if you have inventory, you can buy better. You can change, the structure of your 1099s. There's lots of ways that we can increase margin without just raising prices too.
I love that. And for anybody listening and they're like margins, cost of goods, what are these words? This is where I think actually product-based businesses really have sort of kind of a deeper insight into this because I feel like with service, cost of goods can feel a
Yeah.
little bit more invisible.
Yeah.
And I used to make hand creams, organic hand creams from scratch. This was like my favorite thing ever because I like wanted more money in the hands of more women. So I wanted them to take
Yep.
care of their hands. Right. And what I learned, I'm going to make up numbers because I don't remember what they were, is like if I sold a jar of cream for, I think it was $8 or something, to actually buy the ingredients for the cream, to buy the jar, to buy the label, I knew how much that cost. Let's say it was
Yeah.
$4.50. I don't know.
Yep.
It is really easy to see the cost of goods. What it costs you to actually sell is so easy to see in product.
Yep.
In service, it's a little bit harder, right? I remember sitting down, with my bookkeeper being like, well, Zoom, I can't be a coach without Zoom, right? Because that's where
Yep.
I do my calls. I can't not have this software that helps me store notes. I can't not
Yep.
have my YouTube, like all those things. Like I actually can't sell without these things. And really knowing what that is for anyone listening, if you're confused, just use your common sense on that. And please, please,
Yeah.
please get experts to help you. Like call Ciara, call somebody who really can sit down with you and look at this. Because that margin she's talking about, right? If we look at my creams, if I sold them for $9 and it cost me $4.50 to make it, we know the margin's $4.50, right?
Yep.
You really need to know that number. And I think it's something people just miss. Am I crazy, Ciara? Or do you
Yeah.
feel like it just goes into the ether sometimes?
They do miss it, and then I
Yeah.
think they overspend. So, like, in my
Right.
budget, because 'cause I'm service only now, I count all my 1099s because 'cause I'm like, I have to
Of
have my
course.
gal that, is the success coach and helps me with the DMs, and I have to have, like you said, I have to have Zoom to sell, to do the calls or whatever we wanna put into that. And if you don't understand that, then you don't tweak it and adjust it and say, "Okay, if it's costing me $100 to sell a $200 coaching package, am I happy with $100 in margin to pay for everything else? Or should my coaching package be 250? Or should my cost of selling the $200 package be 75? Like suddenly you have these levers you can pull and just, instead of
Yes.
just saying like, I'm selling 500, $200 packages, where's all the money going? And we don't understand that maybe that $200 coaching package costs us 175 and $25 doesn't, cover our expenses. So
Yeah.
it's important to know. Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
and I
all
love
wrapped
what you're
up.
saying because I love that. You said people think they're overspending or they think that there's something wrong with them or it's just not working. And it's like, no, 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 no. We just have to know where in the numbers the
Yeah.
hidden costs are or what we need to do to the pricing. And I'm just so grateful we're having this conversation because I know it's so
Yes.
helpful to people who maybe are like looking at their numbers and they're like, what happened? And it doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean you overspent. It means you might not be looking in the right places to start to pull levers. Like I just love it, Ciara. So good. So good.
Yeah. And we always have options. I tell my daughter this all the time. Options, right? Because we think, well, I can't raise my prices. Okay. What else can we do?
Right.
Well, I don't know. Well, let's think about it, right? So never limiting yourself to like, well, I can't do this, or I can do this, or only this will work. Like, what kind of options? Because there's always options there. We can not sell as much. We can sell more. We can pay less for our sales. There's lots of ways to slice and dice those 5 categories. And I think understanding those buckets, right? So sales, cost of sales, margin, expenses, profit. What can I do in each of those buckets to move the needle in the right direction?
Is there a percentage of profit that you feel most businesses should aim for?
Yes, I would say 20% net profit
Okay.
is what we want to build our business budget and profit plan around. And then that 20% net profit, then you evaluate, can that service my debt? So you build, instead of setting sales goals, we set profit goals. So we set the sales goal, we look at what our margin is, we look at our expenses, we look at the bottom line. Am I happy with that? Am I not happy with it? Does it meet the 20% goal I have? Yes or no? If it doesn't, we go back and pull some levers on paper, right? And then that overall becomes our goal instead of just, I'm going to sell $1 million. Okay. So now this is our goal, because maybe we can do our paycheck in the way we want to do our paycheck by only selling 500,000, right? Like we set these crazy goals and we don't even know what it means to us. Like, what does that mean to us? And maybe I don't have to work 7 days a week to actually take a $60,000 salary. I don't know.
I mean,
yeah.
Come on. Yes.
Yeah. Let's all get there.
Yes,
and I
please.
talk about this in my book, because Profit Genius, because that was me. Like I had the 7-figure business, the corner office, the team of 12, the warehouse. I had all this stuff, did not take a paycheck. Next business I built was a 6-figure business, and I took the biggest paycheck of my life every day from day one. Okay.
Come on.
It's yes, because I knew what went into that number. And then I set my goals. Okay, so now if I need to sell this much, I break that down. That's how I teach everything, is like, okay, big picture, then we break it down. Then we look again, then we break it down. And we come up, and if you can learn this technique in everything in business, like anytime you have a problem to solve, what's the problem? Now, how do I break it down? Now, what's the problem? Now, how do I break that down? Pretty soon, it's just bite-sized actionable steps. All I'm going to do today is sell 50 $100 things, and I will make my goal, which means I'll help you profitable. That I can do, right?
Yeah, I love that. It's like I always say, like, if the brain has a number to chase, it will figure it out.
Yeah.
Like we're really good at that. I call those, like, a lot of people are like, Sarah, now I have shower moments all the time, but I call them shower moments. You know, you're like in the middle of washing your hair, you're like, oh my God, I have an iron. I know what we're going to do to sell those 100. Yeah. It's like so great, because the brain loves to chase goals when the goals are clear.
When they're clear. Yeah.
It's so good. Speaking of goals and clarity, I understand you're like an Ironman like champion. Do I have this right? Like, oh my God. You have to tell us.
4 times Ironman finisher, and went to World Championships in Kona, which is, if anyone's ever watched Ironman on TV, it's always the Kona, you know, that's the coveted place to go. You have to qualify. So my daughter is 19. She qualified as well. So we did it last year together. And then this year we're focusing on Ironman 70.3, so half distance. And we qualified for World Championships in New Zealand coming up in December. So that's what I'm training for. So I was visiting with my coach this morning on those kinds of goals and the work we have to put in and breaking all of that down. So,
but it's the same idea, isn't it? It's like, we need strength here. We need speed here. We need practice on that, right? It's the same idea. If you don't know what it is, you can't work on it.
Yeah. And I think this was interesting this morning. I need to put this in a book or a podcast, because she just told me this morning. So the swim is the weakest discipline for me.
Okay.
And I'm not super fast swimmer, but I've been gaining time over the last 3 years. I got in the pool last week. My times were horrible. They were so slow. And I messaged her and I'm like, this is so discouraging. Like I swim 3 times a week. I have been working on this for 3.5 years and I've gone backwards. What is going on? And so on our call this morning, she's like, Ciara, if you were consistently just going backwards, I'd say, okay, let's look at your stroke. Maybe something's funky, right? But she said, this is the process, right? We push super hard, we plateau, we might even go backwards a little. She's like, where you are in your training right now, you're very tired, but I want you to be there. And then we're going to back off, and then we're going to push hard, and we're going to get above where you were when you back down, right? And this happens with our numbers and money too. So clients will come to me so excited. So we make really good wins right away. Like we increase their margin, we do these little things. And we're working on paying off debt. And then they're like, oh my goodness, Ciara, I don't have any cash. I'm super stressed again. And I always tell them that's the process, right? Because we have to change things. It took us a long time to get into this mess. It's going to take a really long time to get out of the mess. We can get out of it, but that's the process. We push, we grow, we get fatigued, we change something, we learn, we push, we jump ahead again. So it's all the same. Yeah.
So good.
Ironman or cash flow,
Well, I have to say, you're making me feel better about my workout this morning too, because I was like, holy, when did it get this hard? And they were like, we made it harder and you're getting stronger. And I was like, doesn't feel that way.
I know.
But when you're in the process, right, you're like, what in the actual hell is happening right now?
I know. I do these track sessions and they're timed. And I talked to my coach a couple months ago and I'm like, these are not getting easier. They're so hard, Sarah. They are so hard.
I believe
like you are dying. It's all out running for 200 meters or 400 meters. And I'm like, they should be getting easier. She's like, they will never get easier. You will just get faster.
Oh, God. Isn't
Go
that
write that
truth,
down,
though?
right? Because they'll always be hard because we keep getting faster, right? We
Yes.
keep getting better at our numbers. It won't get easier.
Right.
To do the right things, to tweak the stuff, to create the budget, but it gets tighter. The money comes in quicker. We get to keep more of it, right? We get faster. It's always hard. Business is hard, but it doesn't have to be complicated.
Oh, I love that. I always say it's like climbing Mount Everest. It's very simple. It's one foot in front of the other. That does not mean it's easy.
Right.
Those are two different things.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. So I know people who really push physically. Like I've found this in my own life. Anybody I've met who's got the discipline to train at that level.
Yeah.
That there is something that you really get for business. If you could sort of sum up what you think I heard you on the process. I know we're talking about all of that none of this is simple. Is there anything you could sort of sum up as to what that level of dedication and training and, oh my God, I don't want to do this right now, but you do it anyway.
Yes.
What do you feel that's given you in business? I would love to know.
Yeah, I would say 3 things. The first, when I signed up for an Ironman, I was working with a coach that was helping with 5K, getting fast at 5K. So I went from a 5K running race to a Ironman, which is 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and a marathon.
If anyone doesn't know.
At the end. So most
at the end.
At the end. Yeah. So I texted my coach. I'm like, guess what I just did? I signed up for an Ironman. And he said, what's the distance? Which was a sarcastic remark.
Oh, okay. I see. I'm like, he didn't know? Okay,
no, he knew.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're fired. Because here's the thing. I will not have a coach on my team that doesn't believe in me. Now I wouldn't have cared if he was like, Ciara, that's going to be hard. We're going to have to buckle down.
Right.
But he questioned my intention. And if you're a small business owner and someone is like, why would you ever want to blah, blah, blah? We're done. Okay. So hire the right coach, put the right people on your team. So I went out, I hired someone who had done it before, who believed in me, was like, this is going to be stinking hard. We're doing this in 16 weeks, but I believe in you. Follow the plan and we'll get it done. Number 2, right equipment. I was like, if I'm going to sit on a bike for 8 hours on a Saturday, I need a good bike. I need good running shoes. I need to hire, and help with my nutrition. Right. So we open these businesses, invest all of our money, all of our time, and then we skimp on the things that matter. We don't get a bookkeeper. We don't hire someone like Ciara that can actually help you keep your money, right? We're like, no, I want to do the fun things, post on social, hire someone to help me with that. Okay.
Yes.
So get the right equipment. And number 3 is interest versus commitment, because everyone's interested in crossing the finish line. But I was like, oh, I'm committed. Like I signed up for that. I am not crossing that. So I will do every workout. Even if it seems weird, even if I'm tired, I'm fully committed. So being committed and doing the work, not just interested in the results. Those are the things.
I mean, you can mic drop that. I don't even know how we add to that because yes. And I love what you said about the right equipment, right? I'm embarrassed to admit this too, but it's something I share all the time, but I'm always embarrassed is how long it took me to hire a bookkeeper because I'm so good with numbers.
I was like, I'm going to do QuickBooks. I can save $200 a month by doing QuickBooks on my own. You know?
Yes. And I love it because now my bookkeeper like sends a loom and there's a video and we want you here and you're actually here. You're kicking ass over here. You need to pull back a little here, and it's
Yep.
so great to know there's somebody else looking out for us. And I think that is the role of
Yeah.
a coach. I really appreciate what you said about removing either coaches. And boy, I've fired my fair share of coaches too. I have a really good picker, right? But there's still
Yep.
times you're like, that's not going to
Yeah.
work for
It's
me.
not, or there's
Yeah.
people that are a fit for particular seasons.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the coach that I have, I love her. I just interviewed her on my podcast. Great relationship. But the one that I started with, and she got me across the finish line. We have a great relationship, but she's not the right coach for me now,
That's
right? So
right.
at first I wanted to just finish an Ironman, then I wanted to go to Kona. Those are different coaches, right?
Whew.
And it's okay to know that there's seasons in our business too. People that work for you, even employees. Let's just talk
Mm,
about that for one quick
mm.
second, right?
Yeah,
When
let's
you
go.
start a business, the people that start with you are usually not the people that can take you all the way. I had amazing people that started with me, but I got to a point where I needed like a professional operations operator, right? Like
Yes.
I needed a professional bookkeeper. I needed people who were specific. And so don't feel like bad about that because there's seasons for those employees, teammates, vendors, suppliers, all of the things.
That is so important what you just said. I hope everybody like really perked up and listened to what she just said because it is okay to grow and evolve,
Yeah.
right? When we grow and evolve, we need new and different things. And that's correct. Like that's like, yes, that's the path. And I love
Yes.
what you said about not feeling bad about that. It's so important because we get attached to our people, right? We all
We
love our
do.
people.
We
I
do. I
love
mean,
people
it was
too.
hard for me with that first coach. She'd been through a lot, and I loved her. There
Yeah.
was nothing wrong with her, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
that
Right.
was
Right.
hard. But
Yeah.
I was like, but I want to go here and I need someone that can take me there. And so I just had to decide, do I want that bad enough? Or would I rather avoid the uncomfortable conversation and just stay here forever? I was like, well, I don't want to do that. So here we go.
You're like, that's actually not going to help me grow as a person either.
Yeah,
Note to self, right? And I
right.
do think those challenging, uncomfortable conversations are some of the most important parts of business growth. You know,
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
really like who we have to become to run these businesses the way they deserve to be run, the way we
Yes.
need them to run. Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. Oh my gosh, Ciara. So I understand you have a free book for our listeners, for all the girlfriends today. Can you
Yes.
tell us about it?
Yes, Inventory Genius. And if you don't have inventory, you should still get it because it walks through a profit and loss, a balance sheet. It basically is a book that shows you how your money moves around in your business and how you can keep more of it. So using your inventory to create more profit or keep more cash, but the principles apply. It's super short, easy to read. So I will get that link to you. Everybody can download it on their whatever device and take a read. It's like a 2-hour read. It's super easy. So
Oh, I love
yeah.
it. You guys, if you're watching on YouTube, we'll have that link underneath this video. If you're listening in, it will be in the show notes for you. Ciara, if someone's listening and they're like, oh, dear heavens, please get me more of Ciara, where can people find you?
CiaraStockeland.com. Just head on over. You can take the quiz. There's a fun quiz. We all love a good quiz, right? So tell
Yeah.
me what you're struggling with. And then just tell me a little bit about your business. It's going to direct you and show you where I can best help you. So take the quiz and we'll go from there.
Come on. I love it. I love it. Ciara, thank you so much for spending time with our girlfriends today. We so appreciate you. And thank
Yes.
you from me to you, like human to human. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. You're helping so many people. It's so great.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.